Donald Trump has just concluded a surprising last-minute trip to Mexico to meet with the Mexican president, Enrique Pena Nieto. I think I pronounced that fairly okay. And he was given a lot of credit from people who already like him, saying that this is decisive, bold leadership to decide to go to meet with the president. Although, according to the Trump campaign, he and Hillary Clinton were invited to go. I don't know why accepting an invitation is bold, decisive leadership, but the standards are very low at this point. So they've now met, they spoke. I was looking forward to us speculating about why he's going, but now we actually have footage from it. Before we get to the actual Trump footage, before he showed up and met with the president, former President Vicente Fox, who we know is no fan of Donald Trump, had some choice words for the Republican nominee. So let's watch that now.
First of all, let me tell you, he is not welcome to Mexico. By 130 million people, we don't like him, we don't want him, we reject his visit. I don't understand why President Peña has offered this opportunity. I think it's nothing more than a political stunt. Trump is using Mexico, is using President Peña to boost his sinking poll numbers. I think the President Peña is taking an enormous political risk by hosting Trump. If he's perceived as going soft on Trump, it will hurt him greatly. He would even be considered like a traitor because we don't accept to be offended like we just heard. And as if nothing had happened, he comes here with a smile in his face. But I think this is a big mistake on part of President Peña.
So he wasn't the only one who wasn't happy and said that he wasn't welcome. There was the hashtag not welcome going around. A lot of people, historians and authors in Mexico, a lot of tweets attacking him. We've got a Jorge Ramos tweet we can get to. And so it's a weird trip considering the things that Trump has said about Mexico and Mexicans. Starting off his campaign by attacking in 100 different ways both the people and the government of Mexico. He labeled Mexico an enemy, urged an American boycott, threatened to deduct foreign aid, feuded with former Mexican presidents, including Vicente Fox, who you just saw. He also tweeted this a while back. I have a lawsuit. This is almost just before he started his campaign. I have a lawsuit in Mexico's corrupt court system that I won, but so far can't collect. Don't do business with Mexico. So he learned the hard way. He also said that Mexico is not a U.S. friend. So that's good. And so contextually, a lot of people in America, including myself formerly, didn't know this, but the president of Mexico is not very popular. He has a disapproval rating of something like 66%. It's getting up towards Trump levels, leading Jorge Ramos to tweet, in simple terms, today's meeting is between two of the most despised and hated people by millions of Mexicans on both sides of the border. So we're going to have some video of Trump, some quotes from Trump, some quotes from the Mexican president about their meeting. But it's an interesting choice for him to go there. Maybe it's just to change the news cycle, to change what we're focusing on about Trump for a little while.
Yeah, so first off, let me note for the record that I'm wigged out by this baby Pence over my shoulder in the graphic.
That was a last-minute call.
Okay. Second of all, now moving on to the
because
substance.
Our countries are neighbors.
No, I got it. No, I got it.
They're feuding.
I
like
totally
in the movie?
Yep.
It came out recently.
Right. So Trump, I think that it makes sense for him to go. To give you a sense of how unpopular these two are in Mexico, John gave you this approval rating. Let me give you the approval ratings for these two guys. President Peña is at 23%.
Ooh.
That is worse than George W. Bush when he left office in the middle of one of the greatest economic collapses we've ever seen. So that is, wow, that he's really unpopular. Trump's approval rating in Mexico, and I'm not kidding, is 2%. Okay, 2%. Dos.
Okay, that's bad. That's
Okay.
bad. Maybe he can double that after this meeting.
So I thought for sure that Peña was laying an ambush for him.
That's what I thought.
If you're at 23%, you bring Trump in and then you yell at him. It's like it's a layup. The country,
and he's called him like Hitler and Mussolini in the past. He's not afraid to attack him formerly.
So if I was advising Trump earlier, I might have said, look, it's got big upsides, big downsides. I get it, but be careful and let's have a strategy for if he yells at you publicly in the press conference.
Yeah.
But it turns out Peña didn't do that. He was polite. Then what the hell did you invite him for? I mean, there's a guy who is more disliked in Mexico than probably any historical figure in history. And you're sitting there playing patty cakes with him. What a terrible idea for Pena.
idea.
So now for
And Trump is losing. It's not even like, oh, I have to prepare for after the election. Right now, chances are that Trump still won't be the president. So why take this risk? Or maybe it's not a risk. Maybe he's already so unpopular that what's the worst that could happen to him?
Yeah, it's just, I think maybe that's why Pena is so unpopular, because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? So now for Trump, it's a different calculation. I think this was him being quick, nimble, so most people, you have to, the context is, most candidates who go to a different country spend months preparing. They have their advanced team. They want to make sure that it's a friendly country, so you get a warm reception. Obama at the Brandenburg Gate in Germany with 100,000 people cheering for him was perfect. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And you've got to work it out with your own diplomats, etc. Trump got invited on Tuesday. He was in Mexico on Wednesday. Okay, so now not only would no one else do that, Hillary Clinton had the same opportunity, and she would have had a much warmer reception and didn't take that opportunity because she wanted to over-prepare for it.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to take any chances.
Well, the thing we do have to acknowledge, though, it's not like Trump decided to forego his normal prep for these sorts of meetings or speeches.
That's right. He doesn't do
He
prep.
doesn't do any prep, so this was the same as always.
So then, in order to determine how it worked out for him, let's go to the video. Let's show you how he did, and then we'll analyze whether it's a win for him or not.
Okay.
It is a great honor to be invited by you, Mr. President. A great, great honor. Thank you. We had a very substantive, direct, and constructive exchange of ideas. I was straightforward in presenting my views about the impacts of current trade and immigration policies on the United States. As you know, I love the United States very much. You equally expressed your feelings and your love for Mexico. We are united by our support for democracy, a great love for our people, and the contributions of millions of Mexican Americans to the United States. And I happen to have a tremendous feeling for Mexican Americans, not only in terms of friendships, but in terms of the tremendous numbers that I employ in the United States. And they are amazing people, amazing people.
Okay, we have to try to ignore that he's a child.
Spectacular, great. Many great spectaculars.
Tremendous. They have tremendous people. We have tremendous people. You know what? I love America. Turns out you love Mexico. Who knew that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want you to give me credit because I allow many of them to work for me.
Yes. So get past all that because that's normal. That's what he does every time.
Although, before we get past it, realize that what a lot of his surrogates were saying is this is his opportunity to look, he's going and he's dealing on behalf of America already. This is him with international diplomacy. Except in the international arena, he seems as unpresidential and unprepared as usual.
Yes. Well, but that doesn't seem
And
to hurt him.
boring because he's reading off of paper. He speaks really slowly.
No, it's okay. All that stuff
No,
is
it's not.
irrelevant. So he didn't implode. He's got such a low bar that he cleared that bar spectacularly in a tremendous fashion. He cleared it because there was no embarrassing moment. He didn't trip over himself. Nobody threw his shoe at him. He didn't punch himself in the eyeball, as my kid would say.
He didn't offer a Taco Bell as a present or Taco Bowl.
Yeah, he literally might have done that. And then he didn't get yelled at. And then he got an opportunity to say, you see that? I think that the Mexican people are tremendous people. Now, is that going to help him win a lot of Latino votes in America? Probably not. Maybe a couple, but probably not. But what he's trying to do, and why I think this was a big win for him, is he's trying to tell those white voters that are a little bit on the fence with him, don't worry, I'm not racist. Like, because it's going to be
we'll
hard.
see
It's
for
going to be
tomorrow.
hard for some of you to go to work the next day and say that you voted for a racist. So I'm just giving you enough of a fig leaf to say that, no, he's not racist. He went down to Mexico and called them spectacular. It's another word he used to describe the Mexican people this time around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you might be right, and it might actually work for him. I'm a little bit less inclined to think that it will, just because we've seen this in the past 11 days when he softened on immigration and then within 24 hours went back to, I'm going to build the wall and we're going to kick them all out. So if this is another softening, then maybe he's finally soft enough for people to accept him. But I don't know. He still is going to build a wall, and he still wants to deport more than 10 million people. So you're only so soft at that point. Now, about the wall, though, and it's one of the reasons that my reaction, I said that I might disagree with you. My reaction is mostly boredom. Nothing has come of this. The Mexican president is, we're going to give a couple of his quotes. I have no idea what his plan was, what he hoped to accomplish out of this. And Trump is very lackadaisical. Like, even on his core issue, paying for the wall, is he going to try to score points with his base on that? Well, let's see.
We did discuss the wall. We didn't discuss payment of the wall. That'll be for a later date. This was a very preliminary meeting. I think it was an excellent meeting. And I think we're very well on our way. A lot of the things I said are very strong, but we have to be strong. We have to say what's happening. There is crime, as you know. There's a lot of crime, and there's a lot of problems. But I think together we'll solve those problems. I really believe that the president and I will solve those problems. We will get them solved. Illegal immigration is a problem for Mexico as well as for us. Drugs are a tremendous problem for Mexico as well as us. I mean, it's not a one-way street. And we will work together, and we will get those problems solved.
Is he going to solve the problems? I couldn't tell.
Tremendous. Solve. Great. Tremendous.
Okay. But, John, I've got to tell you something, okay? I've got to tell you something. Okay. So,
I hate him so
look,
much.
this is a total win for Trump. He looks like he's negotiating. He still looks strong. He's not wavering from his position. So he's both
Maybe he
soft
hasn't
and
gotten
strong. No, but
Mexico's not going to pay for the wall. There's not going to be a wall.
Of
It's a ridiculous
course,
racist
but John,
fantasy.
it's a matter of optics for the campaign. So his base thinks, good, look, you see, he went there and told him to his face, there's going to be a wall. And look, he's already negotiating on our behalf. And the independents, some that are persuadable, go, okay, come on, the guy's not a racist. He's sitting there with a Mexican telling him how spectacular and tremendous he is. It's
Maybe.
a win. It's a giant win. It's a total loss for Pena, total win for Trump. You're not a member of the Young Turks yet?
Come on, come on.
Now, when you join up, we're going to say,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
we might even say,
There you go, baby. There you go.
be the independent media, be the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.